Hey guys, what's up? It's all about Mike 18 here with another movie discussion video. This is actually going to be another one of my spoiler-filled reviews for a new film that came out in the theaters. And of course, guys, as you can tell by the title of the video, I am going to be doing a spoiler-filled review in this video of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out last week, and I did already film a non-spoiler review. If you guys would like to check that out, it's already up on my channel. I filmed that, and I was going to film this like earlier this week, but I didn't for two reasons. One, I was really busy during the week, and I just couldn't get a chance to film this video. And two, the other reason, I assumed many of you guys still hadn't seen the movie because it was just its first weekend of release, so I wanted to wait a little while on filming a spoiler-filled review and uploading it. So now I've waited a whole week. It's been a whole week since the movie's been out. I'm assuming many of you guys have seen the movie. But anyway, I'm going to go partially in depth about many of the plot points in the film. I'm going to discuss a lot of things I did not talk about in my non-spoiler review. There are a lot of main things that happened in the film that I didn't even touch upon. And I want to give more of my thoughts on it, so hope you guys enjoy this review. I already reviewed, I did a spoiler-filled review for Captain America the Winter Soldier, and I think I'm going to start doing this more often for the summer blockbusters. Expect a spoiler-filled review for Days of Future Past. I'm probably going to do that. Maybe Godzilla, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a few other, obviously Transformers 4 when that comes out, Guardians of the Galaxy most likely, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm thinking of doing these spoiler-filled reviews for the big summer blockbusters. But anyway, getting into The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, if you guys watched my non-spoiler review, and as I said, if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, spoiler heavy. I'm going to spoil everything, even though it really doesn't matter because the trailers already did that. The trailers already spoiled the whole entire movie. But, anyway, guys, if you watched my non-spoiler review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you guys know that I absolutely did not like the movie. I was really let down with it. Honestly, out of all the films to come out this year, this is the most disappointing film of the year so far for me. Not that in that I was really hyping this movie up, but that I wanted this movie to be good because I wasn't a huge fan of the first Amazing Spider-Man. I was really hoping for good things with this film. And since the writers, mainly the writers, took a big crap on my hopes, I was really upset with this film, and that is why I didn't like it. Okay, and honestly, to date, this is my least favorite Spider-Man movie. You can have debates with me in the comments about this or Spider-Man 3. I don't care. That's my opinion, guys. Okay, I like Spider-Man 3 more than this movie. I'm sorry, but Spider-Man 3 is better than this. Okay, but that's just how I feel. Now, getting in depth with spoilers, one thing I do want to discuss about the post-credit scene, which you can't even call a post-credit scene. I didn't discuss in my review, obviously. I didn't want to spoil it, even though it was like literally one of the worst things you could possibly do to your movie. They literally attached an X-Men Days of Future Past clip or sequence or whatever, showing Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique. And it was just a marketing ploy, okay? A lot of people were like, oh, they're going to do a Spidey X-Men crossover? Oh my god, are they going to bring the Avengers to this? I'm getting so excited. Marvel literally wanted that scene in there to promote X-Men Days of Future Past, which literally made no sense because X-Men Days of Future Past, the trailer for that movie was shown before The Amazing Spider-Man 2 started, in my theater, that is. So I don't know why they had to go throw that in there. I don't know why they couldn't. Apparently they were supposed to give us a regular Amazing Spider-Man 2 post-credit scene, but they cut it out. Like a whole bunch of other scenes they cut out of the movie. Namely, isn't that the question of the day, which was arguably a really memorable quote from the trailer. It wasn't even in the movie. But anyway, I'm going to discuss, break down the four main plot points of the film. There's essentially four. Yes, the movie is very jumbled and it's very messy in that there is so much going on in this movie. It's not that it's hard to follow, it's just a pain in the butt to have to try to, watch each story play out. And one of the stories honestly felt very useless in my opinion, and they could have honestly either wrote it out of the movie or, made it short, or resolved it early in the movie. I don't know, but the four main plot points are the romance, the struggling romance between Peter and Gwen, and the fact that Gwen is going to Oxford or whatever on that scholarship and whatever. It's just that plot point, that romantic plot point, was just really, I don't know, partially unnecessary. The whole Gwen and Oxford thing really just didn't do anything for me and was just really useless. Then you have Peter on the side trying to figure out more about his past with his parents, trying to figure out why his parents were killed, because they set that up for the first movie and they needed to resolve that for this movie. And while they did give us a few answers, I still have a feeling they're gonna go more into that storyline in the third movie, which is ridiculous. I should have just wrapped it up in this movie. Then, of course, you have the build-up of our two main villains, Max Dillon becoming Electro and Harry Osborn becoming the half-Green Goblin, because I refuse to call him the Green Goblin. I've literally thought about it over the past week. I refuse to call Harry Osborn the Green Goblin. In my opinion, Harry Osborn was the weakest part of the movie, because not only was he thrown into the movie, like, his relationship with Peter was so forced, you could honestly feel it. Like, as soon as they met, you're like, okay, they're trying to set up the fact that they were friends when they were younger, they've been away from each other, and then they just have, like, one or two scenes with them together, like, doing stuff as friends, and you just don't buy it, okay? You just do not buy that relationship. And in my opinion, if they really want, and someone commented on my non-spoiler movie review, someone commented and they were like, I agree with how you feel about Harry Osborn being shoehorned into the movie and how that relationship was just terrible between him and Peter. They could have taken out Flash in the first movie, who was, I think they ruined Flash in the first movie, honestly, and they could have replaced him with Harry Osborn and had Harry Osborn built up in the first movie, which would have made a lot more sense, okay? So that was a really good idea, whoever mentioned that, and I don't know why they didn't do something like that, but it's because they're building up the Sinister Six. They needed to throw Harry into this movie. They needed to throw the Rhino into the movie, and that's where the writing ended up blowing up in the writers' faces, okay? So, real quick, I'll discuss the Peter and Gwen plot point first. It's just, Peter felt bad because he made that promise to Captain Stacy, and he keeps seeing him everywhere, which was really creepy and really stupid. Like, he sees Captain Stacy, he sees Dennis Leary, like, 3 times in the movie. I'm like, come on, guys. Really? We saw him once. We get it, okay? First off, that is a cliche. We've how many times have we seen that before? A dead character has been dead, and then we see the dead one of the main characters in the movie sees the dead character, and they feel bad about something. We've seen it done before, and done much better, might I add. And just the whole thing with Gwen and the Oxford thing just really didn't do anything for me, alright? It was just dumb. To my knowledge of the comics, now I've never read the comics. I want to make that known. Okay, I never read the comics. To my knowledge, that was never in the comics or involved in the comics in any way. So that was honestly very useless in my opinion. That was thrown into the movie because you want to strain that relationship between Peter and Gwen, and make Peter want to question what he should do with Gwen and the fact that he should let her go, and then in the end he doesn't decide to let her go. He even agrees, he's like, I'm going to go to England with you, alright? I'm going to bring Spider-Man to England. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is so stupid. And you obviously know what's going to happen. You know that Gwen is going to die, and then that was all, you knew something like that was going to happen. You knew that she was going to, get caught by the Goblin, and Peter was going to have to fight off Green Goblin and half Green Goblin and Electro. So you knew that wasn't going to last, but that plot point was just, I don't know, it's just, but don't get me wrong, the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone was great. I really praised that in my review of the film. What bothered me was the writing of that scene, okay? It's just the acting was so good, but the writing was just shit, okay? And really quickly, let me mention the Daily Bugle, okay? They were smart. I have to give the writers this. Not only would that have made the movie more jumbled and more convoluted, as it already was, but they were smart to not actually, a part of this pissed me off, that the Daily Bugle was only mentioned and not seen, and J. Jonah Jameson was only mentioned and not seen. A part of that pissed me off because they're just glazing over a big thing in the comics, the Daily Bugle and Peter being a photographer, which Raimi did perfectly in my opinion. But not only did they glaze over that, but in a way I'm kind of glad that they did, because there is no one on the face of this earth who can do a better J. Jonah Jameson than J.K. Simmons. So they were smart in a way to have just Peter send him emails of Spider-Man pictures, even though that was another rushed, messy plot point that was just thrown into the movie. But in a way, I'm glad about that. Now, moving on to the story about Peter trying to find his parents. Now, a lot of people complained about this. I actually enjoyed this plot point because it was one of the only plot points that really wasn't overly spoiled in the freaking trailers. I enjoyed this plot point because I actually had some mystery as they set it up. I didn't know what was going to happen or why Norman Osborn or everyone in Oscorp killed off Peter's mom and dad. And when they finally revealed that, and when Peter found out that his father used to go under, like in this underground subway or whatever, he had like this whole lab station, which again was another cliched moment of the script. But when Peter finds that place, and he watches that video of his father on the webcam, and his father reveals that he didn't agree with Norman Osborn's ideas or plans for global weapons that he had in mind. And since he disagreed with Norman, everyone in Oscorp was looking for him. They were after him. I kind of like that plot point because I didn't see what was coming. I didn't know that they were going to go that route, and it was interesting to see them develop. Let us know what happened with Peter's parents. Alright, and now that is something Raimi never did, and that's something I do praise this movie. The Raimi trilogy, I don't even think mentioned Peter's parents, maybe except for a few times in the first movie. Other than that, his parents were never mentioned, and I do like that they're going into that part from the comics. They're exploring the fact that Peter's parents died in a plane crash, and even though they're putting their own spin on the story, with the whole thing with Oscorp and everything, I kind of like that with this movie. So I really enjoyed that plot point. Do I think it was kind of, unnecessary? Could it have all been explained in the first movie, and they didn't even have to do it in this movie? Yeah, I feel that way. But call me crazy, but I like that plot point. I thought that was one of the better plot points in the movie. Now, Max Dillon as Electro. Here's my problem with the villains in the movie. I like the setup of them. Like I like how Max Dillon was just a very nerdy guy who was just an outcast at Oscorp, and he was kind of like a nobody basically. And they when they introduce him and how he idolizes Spider-Man, and then he falls into the vat of the tube of electric eels and becomes Electro. I thought that was pretty cool. Up until the Times Square scene, I was like, okay, I sympathize Jamie Foxx as Electro, and I'm interested to see him be a badass villain for Spider-Man. And while he really wasn't badass, in my opinion, not only was that a letdown, but the fact that Electro, his whole motive for attacking Spider-Man or blacking out all of New York was for the fact that Spider-Man kind of forgot what his name was, and the fact that the police fired on him, and Peter said that one police officer shot at him when he wasn't supposed to, and Peter said, listen, they're not going to shoot you or anything, I'm just here talking with you. And so Electro felt he lied to him, so he kind of felt Spider-Man stabbed him in the back. It's just that whole motive was just very weak, in my opinion. It's just a result of poor writing, in my opinion. That's what it ultimately is. And I'm going to get into the whole team up of Electro and Half Green Goblin. But real quick, Harry Osborn plot point. Harry Osborn, I'm sorry. You watch my review, you guys know that he was honestly one of the weakest parts for me. It's just Dane DeHaan did a good job acting-wise, but in terms of the script and how that character was written, I just didn't give two shits for Harry Osborn and the fact that he had a hereditary disease. Kind of came off as a jerk to me, honestly. Like, he was kind of like a jerk to Peter. I know he was desperate to find something to, some sort of cure or something to help him and not help him not die like his father did early in the movie. But it was just, that whole plot point was just ruined for me, in my opinion. And I just didn't really care for Harry Osborn. And all those scenes he had with Peter just never really fazed me. I didn't buy the two of them were friends. They had decent chemistry with one another, but it was just so forced. You just don't buy it. And that's ultimately what ruined that aspect of the movie for me. And the fact that he's trying to get Spider-Man's blood, that was just weird, okay? That was just very, very odd. And I sympathized Harry for like the beginning of the movie when he was first introduced in the movie, and then right after that, I just didn't care for him anymore. I just didn't give a shit. And they tried to introduce that then when, he's trying to get Spider-Man's blood, and then eventually him and Electro do team up, and he goes to that Ravencroft Institute or whatever, and just their team up was just even weak. They literally meet with each other for one or two scenes, one scene in that Ravencroft Institute, and then they're together in Oscorp, and then they literally don't use each other for the rest of the movie. So the movie marketed them as working together to take down Spider-Man. That's what the movie made it look like, that he was going to have an epic battle between Electro and Green Goblin almost at the same time, really. And they did it. The first battle he had was with Electro, easily defeated Electro, and a 2-minute weak fight scene, and then a few seconds later, Green Goblin soars in because the plot demands it, that they have one fight scene, which was very weak as well, about a minute and a half to a 2-minute fight scene between Spider-Man and half Green Goblin. Alright, so that is just, I'm sorry, that's just, no. The whole team up was just a disaster. Okay, they literally just used one another to further, so Harry can get that cure, to get that Spider-Man, that venom thing that he put into his body that made him like transform into like this half goblin, half man thing. And he wasn't even green. The Green Goblin in this movie wasn't even green. He had like pigments of green like around his like forehead or whatever, like little splotches or whatever. But it was just so poorly done. The Green Goblin looked terrible in this movie. I would have just called him the freaking Hobgoblin. He was not the Green Goblin in my opinion. It was a poor excuse for the Green Goblin. Okay, just the way he looked was just terrible. It was a disgrace in my opinion. And like I said, the team up was just between Electro and Green Goblin was just very, very unsatisfying. It just wasn't that strong in my opinion. The writing was very poorly developed on that end, and I was very, very let down with that. And getting back to the fight scenes, like I said, what really upset me, I wanted the action to be bigger for this movie, but it didn't go bigger like it should have. The fight between Electro was weak. Like literally, Electro just turns into like these bolts of like lightning, and he's like flying all over the place. He's like Peter's like grabbing him and like wrestling around with him in the air, and then just like hitting like all these as Electro's trying to black out the whole city or whatever. It was just so like rushed and just so it was like well filmed and everything, but it was just a mess. Alright, the fight scene just wasn't that exciting. It never really excited me or got me into that whole conflict, alright? And the Green Goblin and Spider-Man fight was honestly weak. The only thing that saved that scene of the movie was Gwen Stacy's death. Now, I didn't bring up Gwen Stacy's death till now for a very important reason. That was honestly one of the best scenes in the movie, if not my favorite scene in the movie. It was the only scene in the movie where I honestly legitimately cared for the characters, mainly Peter's character and of course Gwen's character. And that was one of the only scenes I honestly gave a shit about what was going on in the movie. And I definitely felt bad, the movie definitely made me feel a little depressed because that their acting, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone did such a good job together. They had such great chemistry. Just to see her die and to see him react to her death was just really very upsetting. Okay, and not that was bad. I liked that part of the movie. The Gwen Stacy death scene was handled perfectly, and the fact that Green Goblin swooped in and that he noticed that Gwen was talking to Spider-Man, he put the pieces together and found out that Peter Parker must be Spider-Man, and then he stole Gwen and dropped her off that clock tower. And she ended up falling to her death. I just love that whole scene. And when she fell and broke, when she was falling, and Peter couldn't, shoot the web to grab her in time, and she hit her back, it made that loud noise. I didn't hear that noise at first because my audience was literally in shock. They just screamed out loud. Half of them did, and I didn't hear that snapping noise. And I watched the death scene online, and I heard it, and I was like, alright, I missed that scene in the movie. But Gwen Stacy's death was handled very well in my opinion. Had the movie been I don't know. That was honestly one of the best scenes of the movie. Don't get me wrong. I like the Times Square sequence. That looked very nice, and it was an interesting enough fight scene, I guess, even though it was very short. Gwen's death was arguably my favorite scene in the movie. And what they killed with Gwen's death, what they ruined with Gwen's death scene, and they just made it, completely useless or pointless or whatever, is that they literally glaze over her funeral and the fact that Peter's just mourning her or whatever, and then he just goes back to he goes back to fighting as Spider-Man after watching Gwen's absolutely terrible valedictorian speech. I mean, what other it was such just a cliched, obvious speech. Like, that speech was solely made to motivate Peter. You could tell that speech was a valedictorian speech supposed to be for your classmates, but it was just, you could tell she was specifically making it out to one person. It was so obvious. Even in the beginning of the movie, you're like, this is for him. This is for Peter. I mean, and then in the end of the movie, it just makes so much sense how bad that valedictorian speech was. But anyway, it was terrible. And you never bring up negativity in a valedictorian speech. Don't trust me. I've heard of that before. You never do that. And she broke the number one rule. But anyway, I did enjoy Gwen's death scene. For anyone wondering, it was a very well filmed scene, even though it was, they had the slow-mo, which, whatever. It was a very well filmed scene. It was very well acted by Andrew Garfield, and it was very emotional. It definitely hit me, even though I really didn't care too much for the characters in this movie. And yeah, I really did enjoy that scene. Arguably the best scene in the movie. The one thing that saved me was that they did that scene very well. And, from how they had Gwen's costume to the fact that Green Goblin was the one who inadvertently caused her death, even though it wasn't Harry Osborn, it was Norman Osborn in the comics, from what I know. I think they got that. That was one of the only scenes in the movie that it was pretty comic accurate. Everything else, no. But yeah, that's really it, guys. Oh, and Rhino. Rhino was just a disgrace. They have him in the beginning of the movie. Paul Giamatti was so underused, terrible accent, and to just have him, in the end of the movie, in the final fight scene that was spoiled in the trailers, the last shot of Peter throwing that sewer cap at him was right in the trailers, okay? And it was just a complete mess, all right? That whole fight scene, the mechanical suit, I just didn't buy it, okay, guys? Very, very upsetting, and a very disappointing way to end the movie. Like, they're setting up the Sinister Six in the end of the movie with that man in the shadows guy. That's one of the endings. They have Peter going in Gwen's grave. That's one of the endings. Then the very last, final ending is the whole thing with Rhino. It was just terrible, okay? You don't have all these different climaxes, and then you end it with a fight scene, not knowing what happened with Rhino, okay? Like, I don't even know if they're going to explain that in the third movie, what happened with Rhino. Obviously, he's going to be with the Sinister Six, but in my opinion, it was just a big letdown with that whole scene and the whole build-up of Rhino in the trailers. And that's honestly why I was let down with this movie. The trailers made the movie look kind of awesome, but it just wasn't. So guys, that's how I feel about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I've gotten people saying that they didn't agree with my review or whatever, my original non-spoiler review, because I was biased towards the Sam Raimi movies. And while I do love the Sam Raimi movies better, that is not why I hated The Amazing Spider-Man 2, guys. Amazing Spider-Man 2 legitimately had flaws that were major problems with the movie, and that's why I didn't care for it. So that is why I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I'm sticking with my rating. I have not watched the movie twice. I don't intend to watch it a second time anytime soon, and I don't intend on changing my rating, because I was really let down with this movie, and it could have been a lot better than it was. It really could have been fixed, mainly because of the writing. So that's how I feel about Amazing Spider-Man 2, guys. One of the biggest letdowns of the summer movie season in a very long time, okay? Didn't really like it, and I really, really hope, even though I really don't have too many expectations left for this series, but I hope that they fix Amazing Spider-Man 3 and they don't ruin Sinister Six, because I could see that epically failing, miserably failing. I see that happening. So, thank you guys for watching, and let me know down below in the comments. Sorry if this review was kind of all over the place, but I kind of wanted to explain every single plot point in the movie that I didn't get to talk about in my non-spoiler review. But down below in the comments, let me know what you thought about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. What were your thoughts about some of the scenes? What did you think about Gwen Stacy's death scene? What did you think about the villains? Do you think they were underused like I did? They didn't have enough fight scenes. They weren't fully developed. The team-up was weak. Let me know all about that. Let me know your opinions on that down below in the comments. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, sticking with me with this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye, guys.